I can hear you, Mark. You're a little bit muffled, but I can hear you. Good evening, AC Valley. This is the April workshop, and we are presenting it virtually this evening. Just a quick reminder before we get into the meeting, we have a host of items to review today. We just want to make sure that everybody's mic is off until you're ready to be speaking, or if you have a question, just raise your hand. At this time, I'll ask Tammy to do the roll call of the members participating.
Carrie Armagost. Megan Dreher.
Here.
Jen Fight.
Here.
Diane Page.
Here.
Corey Sherman.
Here.
Lena Southworth.
Here.
Jameen Stump.
Here.
Kelly Terwilliger.
Thank you, Tammy. This evening, we do not have anybody here from the public to address the school board, and we do not have any presentations. At this time, is there any board concerns that we need to talk about before we move into the consent agenda? And we have 6th grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade that all like to work in conjunction with the PTO to go down to Parker for a day of fun and festivities. They'll be working to increase social skills and collaboration and participate in outside activities. And we also have 5th grade coming in. It came in a little bit late today, so it'll be on your agenda as well. Mrs. Sherman and myself met with the teachers, and we talked about these trips. And since we had such a unique year and we couldn't participate in anything last year, we encourage the teachers to think outside of the box, and this is what they came up with. So kudos to the teachers and everybody who put the work into this particular activity here at the end of the year. Before we move on down through the consent agenda, are there any kind of questions associated with the conferences or field trips in front of you? Okay, hearing none. Aaron, if you could take us back up to the consent agenda. Letter B, we have an exciting activity planned for the end of April. We're creating an AC Valley team. This particular group of people will meet in the elementary cafetorium the last Wednesday of each month. And the goal of this particular program is to increase the school district and community collaboration. In addition to this, we will be entering into the comprehensive planning phase, and we'll be able to have our stakeholders already in place. And we'll be working with a variety of folks within the AC Valley School District community. Mike Veer will be taking the lead on that. I'll be supporting him in his efforts. We've invited a number of local community members, and we want to extend the invitation out to the school board members and administrative team at AC Valley. So that will begin at 6:30 in the elementary cafetorium on April 28th. Letter C, we have a request from the Falcon Fellowship to have a National Day of Prayer at the flagpole. This will be taking place on May 6th at 6:30 a.m. and they'd like to invite everybody on the call to attend that particular event. It's been a long-going activity that the Falcon Fellowship's been hosting up at the high school, and it's very well attended. Letter D, last year we didn't have the AC Valley and Keystone Youth Football Program participate, due to COVID restrictions. But this year I have been working with the new president, and they did submit a request for in favor of continuing on with these activities. They asked to use the football fields for practices and games. They asked for the concession stand, and we're still reviewing the expectations with that. At this time, we're not selling concessions, but that may change, and we'll be working with Paul if that does change. In addition to that, they will have games on Saturday, and they'll be contacting Officer Sittler to provide any kind of coverage needed. Under letter E, we have a couple of agreements from Beacon Light Behavioral Health Systems, and at this time we do not have any students in those programs, but we do update the agreements, and periodically I'll put them in front of the school board, not only for approval, but also to highlight various programs. We've had students in this program, very productive and beneficial, and they target a variety of needs that sometimes our students are searching for. So I do recommend the approval of those two agreements. And again, we don't have any students in that program at this time, but there's always a possibility of it. And then to finish off the consent agenda, this is a very interesting request. It comes from CJ Ritchie. He'd like to work in conjunction with Mr. Milford to install metal benches, cement pads, and replace the old red wooden benches that are starting to become dilapidated. This is part of an Eagle Scout project. So good for CJ, and it sounds like an absolutely fantastic project. I'm sure Mr. Milford and his crew will be great mentors to CJ. Before we move into finance and purchase, I'd like to open up the floor for any kind of questions or comments on the consent agenda, if there are any. Hearing none, we'll move right down through finance and purchase. And Aaron, take us to page 2. We'll come back to paying the bills during the voting meeting. But on the top of page 2, we have a number of projects that we've been talking about and working towards. And Mr. Milford was able to get 3 bids for the high school cafeteria floor to have it replaced. You'll see under letter I, it's from the Clarion Environmental Services, and that's the removal and disposal of asbestos from the high school floor. And that bid comes in just under $12,000. And then letter J is to follow up with that, and that's Shaw Integrated Solutions. And they're going to reinstall a new floor for just under $24,000. So fortunately, we have some money in the budget right now, so we will not have to dip into the reserve, but we can target a project up at the high school that we've known about and have been able to put off for a period of time. But it's just the floor is lifting and it's becoming a health and safety situation right now. So we are making a recommendation to move forward with that. Letter K, this is for the elevator, the Stassen Krupp elevator bid, and it's for $44,414. And that's to replace the panel, but there's also a whole host of other work that's associated with that bid. If you were to get in there and take a look at that bid, you'll see there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that elevator, and we do use it on a daily basis. And then letter L is the parking lot. So Emmy was able to create an RFP. We put it out for bid. It was posted for 3 weeks. We had 3 bids, and the lowest bid that came in was for $89,975, and it was from Russell Standard. Now let's double seal tar and chip, and that's the parking lot and main driveways in and out of the school. And I do have Mr. Milford on the video this evening, so if there's any questions or comments, we can entertain any kind of questions. Or Mark, if you have anything that you'd like to add to those bids, feel free to do so.
No, we're very pleased with the bids we received, I thought.
I'd agree. Hearing no questions, or if anything pops up, feel free to bring it up a little bit later on in the meeting. But at this particular time, we'll move into the focus of tonight's meeting, and that is the preliminary budget. We're going to start with Emmy and a review of the fund balance, and then I have a PowerPoint that I'll walk us through, and then Emmy will take a little bit of time to dive into the specific line items within the revenue and the expenditures of the budget. So this time, Emmy.
It's coming. Yeah, I think I'm good. Give me just a minute here. Okay. Okay, so under Gadsby 54, it is recommended that the school district designate a portion of their fund balance to cover future expenses. Every year after our auditor presents our audit in December, we review and make the necessary changes to our fund balance according to our policy number 620. So if you look here, June 30th of 2020, we had $4,564,240 to start our 2020-21 beginning fund balance. Out of that $4,564,000, we designated $2,810,548 to the assigned fund balance. Under the assigned fund balance, this money is designated, and it cannot be random, but must be supported by actual anticipated expense. Some examples are to increase our health care, increase in retirement costs, debt service, and a one-time anticipated expenditure. So we start out with the 2021 estimated budget shortfall, and that's $1,225,375. Under the PSERS, the fund is set aside for the new rate that's going into place at 34.94. It's a difference from last year's proposed budget to this year's proposed budget of $79,748. Under the healthcare increase, we're looking at an 8.36% increase. So it is $134,014 increase. And then the staff increase of 2.5% is $150,037. Then we also are putting in the parking lot improvements of $89,975. So if you take the $2,810,548, subtract all those out, we're left with $1,131,399 left in the assigned fund balance. So then in the unassigned fund balance, we take our projected budget for the 2021, which was $16,354,652. And under our policy, if we have a budget between $16 million and $16,999,999, we're allowed to keep 9.5% in our unassigned. So that comes out to $1,553,692.94, and we transferred $1,553,692 into the unassigned fund balance. We always keep $200,000 into the non-spendable fund balance, which we keep for inventory. So that would leave an estimated fund balance of $2,885,091. Then also I've put down the fund balance increases and decreases over the last 10 years, I guess. And you can see how what we've added to the fund balance and what we have taken away from the fund balance. Is there any questions? So then also I gave you a copy of our policy 620. So you can read through that as to how the fund balance is designated. And then I also gave you a copy of the actual financial statement that ended June 30th that tells right here the beginning fund balances, and those are the beginning numbers that I used for this report.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on down through the agenda, I'm going to share my screen here, and I do have a PowerPoint for this evening's discussion. And I'll provide a gross overview of the budget, and then Emmy will take some time to break it down into various line items with the revenues and the expenditures. We'll start with a review of the timeline. In March, Emmy and I spent some time meeting with the principals and the department chairs, and we collected information on their supply request. This evening, we're presenting the preliminary budget. Just keep in mind that this budget's still changing, and it will be adjusted before we put it in front of the school board on May 17th, which that'll be the deadline to adopt the proposed final budget. Once we have that budget approved, we'll put it on the PDE 2028 and put it into the public, display for 1 full month. On June 17th, we have a school board meeting where we adopt the final budget, and then it is school law by June 30th that we submit that budget to the Department of Education. That's the process that we're following. Keep in mind that we will be talking about taxes this evening, and we can go up to an increase of 4.1% according to Act 1. Our current real estate mills for the 2021 school year is as follows. And just keep in mind, we are the only school in the state in 4 different counties. So Emmy will talk a little bit about increasing taxes and then how it impacts each one of the millage rates within the counties that our community is involved with. We also have a projection here, and I started with the 06-07 school year. That's whenever I started with the district, and we've had a decrease of 370 students, and you can see the numbers over the years. And if I had to say we had one thing that was concerning here at AC Valley, that's a decrease in student enrollment, because we have such a wonderful educational program. And as you can see, where we're at right now is 579 students. A review of the staff, and this is the projection for the 21-22 school year. We have 1 superintendent, 2 principals. We will have 1 business manager. We have Andrea on right now as the assistant business manager, learning from Emmy. We have 58 teachers. We're proposing 1 math coach under the ESSER 2 funds. We have 10 aides, 1 title, 5 full-time, 4 part-time. We have 2 nurses, 1 athletic director, 1 trainer, 2 counselors, 1 in each building. We have an intervention specialist down at the elementary, 2 librarians, and we have a shared staff between the technology department and maintenance. So within tech, we have 2.17% staffing, and then our maintenance is 2.83. So James Best works closely with Mark and Jeff, and splits his time between the 2 departments. The custodians, we have 8 full-time, 3 part-time, and we also have 2 4.5-hour ESSER staff members that within the district. So they go around wiping down high traffic areas throughout the day and have done a wonderful job. We do have a school psychologist this year. Last year, we were in transition and we did a number of contracted services. We do have one special ed director who's here around 21 hours, sometimes a little bit more. We do have an audit coming up, so that may increase, but generally speaking, it's a 21-hour per week contract. We do contract through the IU for a social worker. We started this year off with 1 day a week. We went to 2 days, and next year, we're hoping to have 3 days per week. And we do have that written into the ESSER 2 grant as well. We have 1 part-time study hall monitor and attendance officer. We just went from 5.3 secretaries down to 4.3. And we have 1 cafeteria supervisor, 1 full-time staff in the cafeteria, 9 part-times. And we have 2 police officers in the budget, but that may be changing and we'll go down to 1 police officer. Currently, we have 1 on staff because Mark Graff had moved on to a local school district. So some changes, and again, Emmy will break this down. We do have a retiring teacher. We're planning not to replace that position. There's some PBIS cost up at the high school that's increased. We have that matching contribution of 34.49% with our retirement system. Healthcare is projected to go to 8.36, although that's still subject to change. And then we're putting in the budget right now for the IU6 special education cost of $690,452. And that's the number of students that we have outside of the district attending classrooms that meet their particular needs. Career Center cost, we have a slight decrease in the number of students going up there, so it's $350,451. And then our outside cyber school costs are as follows. At the elementary school, we're booking $304,000 to be spent on outside cyber, and at the junior senior high school, $365,000. Right now, we have a projection of $178,000 in the budget for students in outside placements, whether they went there on their own or they were court placed. Parking lot project that we talked about earlier came in just under $90,000. We're still a little bit unsure as far as what our state revenue will be coming in, because Governor Wolf did make a very aggressive proposal, and then ongoing federal revenues always a concern for us, even though with the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, we're going to be able to target a lot of projects within the district. Our local taxes are still unsettled because we're not sure if we'll increase it to the index of 4.1. We can increase it a little bit, or we have the option not to increase it. So just to summarize the ESSER 2 money that we have planned for the 21-22 school year, and we're hoping for, the following school year to utilize ESSER 3. But we're looking at a math coach, the HVAC controls at the elementary, additional Chromebooks, distance learning apps, the part-time custodians I talked about, cleaning supplies, bottled water, and such. Now, just to break down in some of those line items of salary and benefits, you can see there's an increase. It was just about 2.5% across the board in our salaries, a slight uptick with our retirement, and a total increase of $242,470 from last year to this year's projections. Health-related benefits, again, we projected the 8.36%. We'll have a fine number here midway through April, but that's what we're looking at right now. And again, a lot of these items, dental, vision, liability stays the same, but the 8.6% increase has an increase of $133,165. The cafeteria budget, we're working closely with Grant and Stacy, and as you can see, that's just a projection over the years that we started the year out. That will change with participation and number of days that we're in school. But next year, we're very optimistic with the projection that we have. But again, it's a fiduciary account, and we're projecting to lose about $60,000 when you take in all the costs to run our cafeteria. Emmy talked about the AC Valley fund balance, but I just put it down on the slide here just to outline some of her numbers. You can tell we're starting the year at $4,564,240. And if the budget ends out the way it looks like, we'll be just under $3 million in the reserves. So you'll hear a little bit more details about this budget, but our expected revenue at this time will be $14,901,913. Our projected expenditures, $16,576,779. So if we were to raise the taxes to the 4.1% that I alluded to earlier, we would have a shortfall in that budget as it stands right now, $1,661,866. Future concerns, and again, these are items that adjust a little bit from year to year, but they're pretty much out there. We need to do something with the track one way or the other. Junior high school, senior auditorium renovations due. COVID-19, we're not sure what that looks like in the future. Governor Wolf's proposal, although very focused on education, he'd like to put all his money through the basic education funding formula. This formula is set up to equalize the revenue from the state. And a quote that was told to me years ago was there's winners and there's losers with this formula. AC Valley is a loser. So this is concerning to me, because what keeps us afloat right now is a basic education circular that was created back in the 90s and is hold harmless. So basically no school gets less money the next year that they had the year prior. So that keeps us afloat with the state revenue coming in. But if Governor Wolf full budget gets passed, then he is adding additional revenue into it to equalize the formula. So I guess it's a waiting game at this particular time. The other concern we have right now is a budget impasse, because again, this happened the first term that Governor Wolf was in. He was very aggressive, and we went into November without having a budget. So that may make things a little bit tricky here in the fall. We're just never certain as far as the local, state, and federal revenue coming in from year to year. Increased healthcare costs, they continue to go up. PSERS cost, it's been increasing. It's hopefully leveling out, but still it's 34.97% of every dollar paid out is a matching contribution. And again, as I stated earlier, declining student enrollment, and then ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the facilities. Even though our facilities are great, it costs money to keep them updated, and Mark and his staff does a great job with that. I'd be willing to take any kind of questions you may have right now, or if we want to wait till Emmy's done. But our next step with this presentation this evening was a detailed look at our revenues, line by line item down through the expenditures, and then we'll present that preliminary budget for you to think about and ask questions. And then during the voting meeting, we'll have that in front of the school board, and we'll hopefully be ready to put a regular budget in front of you in May so that we could put it out in public display. Are there any questions for me before I turn it over to Emmy?
Okay, so we're going to go through the revenue part of the budget. And so the first 4 pages are from the actual PDE 2028 general fund budget pages that calculate the real estate tax millage. So most of this information on this page is pre-populated by the state. I add the new assessed values that I received so far from the counties. So this area is all put in by the state. The assessed values I add. So the assessed values for Armstrong County are $9,778,840. Butler County is $7,369,855. Clarion County is $19,101,858. And Venango County is $130,557,700. So after I add that, the state rebalances the tax levy and they adjust the mills subject to the index, which is down in this area. These are the new mills that they rebalanced, and those are the mills that I have to start out with. And you can see there's a difference from what it was to what it is right now in each county, except for Venango. Venango stayed the same. So then I take the new subject mills and I added the Act 1 index of 4.1, which calculates the tax levy of $3,775,785. And then it subtracts out the homestead farmstead that I estimated at $279,825, which that's what we received this year. So I'm using that number. That equals $3,495,960. And then we collected 88%. So the total amount that we're anticipating getting on real estate going to the index of 4.1 would be the $3,076,444. Is there any questions on this page? If not, we'll go on. The next page, what this shows is that here is the tax levy for each county. And it states here that I'm within the 4.1 on each county. And that's what I look for on this page. This area is for the homestead, farmsteads, which we do not have that information yet. Same here. I just entered what we received this year so that it would go back and calculate that information for me on the front page. And then on this page, it just brings everything over. It gives the assessed values. It gives your real estate millage, the dollar amount that the tax levy generated by a mill would be. And then it minuses out the homestead farmstead, comes to a dollar amount, and that is taken by the 87.99 that we collect at, showing us that we should receive $3,076,444. The only other portions that I put in here is that we collect a per capita tax, a $6.79 per capita tax. It's at a $5 rate, and we're looking to collect $14,070 of that. And then also we collect a Act 511 per capita at $5. We're looking to tax levy 14,070 for that. We also collect an earned income tax from Keystone Collection, and I'm looking to collect about 480,000 for that. And then we also collect a current 511 real estate transfer tax, and we're looking to get about 51,000 for that. Okay, so here is the breakdown on all the revenue that we're anticipating receiving. And so the very first one is the current real estate tax, and there I bring over the 3,076,444. We do collect a public utility real estate tax, and I'm guessing that's around 4,080. Payments in lieu of current tax at $98 is from fish commissions. And then we have our current 679 on our 511, which we're looking at the 14,070. Earned income tax from Keystone, 480,000. Real estate tax transfer, 51,000. Delinquent real estate tax, about 300,000. Our investments, about 26,900. Emission at the gate receipts, we're looking at 12,800. Although this year we didn't collect anything and we had put in for 13,500. State revenue from the VOTEC, 58,164. Liquid fuel tax around 700. We do an excess pass-through from the IU around 7,000, and also IDEA pass-through from the IU of 121,000. You can see here, this was the dollar amount that we had put in the budget for the detention center last year, so that's 0. Also here, this would have been the amount that the school district would have received, our 5% portion, that's a 0. We also billed the school districts for a special ed supervisor for anyone at the detention center. So that's a 0. So we're looking at around 4,181,361 of local revenue tax total. Coming down to the 7,000 category, which is all state reimbursement. We level funded our basic ed to 5,941,858, and that could change. The basic ed funded Social Security, we get 50% of what we pay out from the state, so that's about $238,212. Tuition for children under Section 1305 and 1306, I don't have a good number in there yet. I just took what we anticipated to get this year. That number is going to change. Special education of exceptional pupils, we level funded that from the state. The pupil transportation, we're going at $927,733, and non-pubs, $15,015. Medical and dental service around $12,000. This is a state property tax that we get, that we distribute to our homestead farmsteads. And then Ready to Learn block grant, $151,489. That does stay the same. And we use that to pay for kindergarten teachers and salaries, but only for one teacher, salaries and benefits. First program, $129,686, and the state share of retirement contributions, we get about 58% back from the state for what we pay out. So I'm looking around $1,250,204. State revenue total around $9,665,367. And then the federal portion, we don't have the good numbers yet. Carrie will be going in May, or Webb in May, that we would probably find out what our new numbers will be. But Title, we're looking at 213,717. Title 2A improvements, which we use for professional developments, 28,769. Title 4A, 16,867. The ESSER 2 funds, 767,832. And the excess medical reimbursement, that we figure around 18,000, and then 10,000 for the medical assistance. Coming into a grand total of 14,901,913 as our revenue. Is there any questions on the revenue? Okay, so we'll go into the expenditure portion. So I've highlighted different areas of that I wanted to bring to people's attention. So this is the first part is the Ready to Learn grant, which I just talked to you about, which we are to receive like 151,000. I use one teacher's complete salary and all her benefits, and then one teacher benefits to come up to the 151,000 that we're to receive. So that's that group. The math coach, we're looking at a 57,025 estimated for that, and that's coming out of your ESSER grant. We're looking here for the summer reading program that we were put into the ESSER grant. The math coach, looking at all the benefits that would go with the math coach. That would be your hospital, your dental, your life, your disability, your vision. And then you'd have your Social Security, and you'd have retirement also. And then we also have the summer reading and all the program or all the benefits that go with that. This is which is retirement and Social Security, unemployment, workers' comp. So then we also have our ACV cyber costs, and we're looking around 40,000 for it. And then we were going to put 30,000 from the ESSER grant to help pay for the ACV cyber school. We're looking in the outside cyber school. We have 14 elementary students, estimated cost at 304,000. We have 19 high school for 365,000. We're looking at ESSER 2 for Chromebooks. And this dollar amount we actually changed today, but I didn't change it in here because I had already transferred these to you on Friday. So that will change. We took money from that and we put it back under the ESSER switches. Under the educational software, 21,350 for out of the ESSER 2 and 22,750 out of the ESSER 2, one for the elementary and one for the high school. This was all the detention center expenditures. They have all gone to zero. So under instructional, we're looking at around 6,903,153 for expenditures. Then you get down to your special programs, which is your learning support and your gifted. And really, the only changes there are salary increases and benefit increases. We also have the IU projection of 690,452, and that's for 15 students. Then we have, we're looking for the outsourcing for Glade Run is 3 students, and that's around 105,000. And then we have a student at Glendon, which is 73,000. I think this 73,000 is going to change. It's going to go lower. So that dollar amount will change also. Tuition at the Career Center, we have 43 students projected, and the total is $350,451. This was the detention center for Red Ed, and it's at 0. Under your pupil personnel, which is your guidance counselors, your attendance officer, your psychologist, your speech teacher, there's really no change in there other than salaries and benefits. We did add the social worker that we're going to take out of the ESSER grant, which is through the IU. That's at $51,000. The 2,200 is your services instructional staff. There really isn't any change in that area, except again for salaries and benefits. We have our librarians. Really nothing, no changes in that. Your support staff for your administration. Again, that's just salary and benefit increases. Your nurses, there was no changes in that either other than salary and benefits. The business office, we are going to take out of the ESSER grant software called Forecast for $5,463. Out of the maintenance, we are doing 2 custodians, one from the elementary and one from the high school, and that's coming out of the ESSER grant. Those are the 4.5-hour girls that are working out of the ESSER grant, and then there are other benefits for them. Also, we have $8,750 we're doing for the elementary and for $8,750 from the high school for supplies, COVID supplies out of Mark out of the ESSER grant. Our transportation costs, we're looking at around $1,007,800 for public, and we're looking at about $87,021 for non-pubs. This is our athletic area. We have for the driveway, the parking lot, the $89,975. And then for the building improvements, for the control upgrade, we have $3,760. My screen's going dark. So all total, our supplies or our expenditures are $16,576,779. So our revenues $14,914,913. We subtract our $16,576,779 of our expenditures, and we're out $1,661,866. And that's the budget. as of right now. There will be changes, and next board meeting will present all the changes. Is there any questions?
Thank you. I mean, you did a fantastic job on that, and I'm glad that you're able to help Andrea through that learning process. It was the first time she's gone through that as well. We do need some direction. I know we hit you with a lot of information this evening, but comes next week when we have the voting meeting as far as the local property taxes and what the board's thinking. So we'll have to continue to have that discussion. And if you have any recommendations for Emmy and I in the meantime, I mean, feel free to speak up. As we're moving down through finance and purchase, the last item that we have in front of you this evening is the IDA Part B risk assessment questionnaire, and that's for auditing purposes. That's a yearly document that's completed by the district, sent up to the intermediate unit 6. They keep it on file, but for our audits, we have to have that on file as well. And it just asked about any kind of turnover with the superintendent, the special ed director, the business manager, and such. So it's just a document that we'll have on file after this meeting. So before we move into personnel, is there any discussion points at this time for finance and purchase? Hearing none, I'll continue on down through personnel. We do have a letter to
Can I back you up just for a second, David?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I
yes.
was trying to get to my mute button.
Please do.
So I guess my question is, as you all, as everybody was starting to prepare this, were there any suggestions from the finance committee in terms of things that we should look at or could look at or anything like that? Any suggestions from them?
Mark, do you want to take the lead on that, or do you want me to summarize a little bit of our conversation today?
When we went over this afternoon, I mean, some of this stuff is just so fixed, we can't really do anything with it. Like the cyber, that's a lot of money that goes out, but we don't have any say over that. The ESSER money, that's maybe something that we could somewhat play with there, but everything that we have that kind of time is all good items, so I don't know.
Mark's
That-
cutting out. Can somebody repeat what he said?
You hear me now, Kelly?
I can now.
We went over different things about the only money that we would have any way to play with would be that SSC money. Some of the ideas we have with that, maybe we could change. So many fixed costs in the budget really limits where else you can cut. Know what you have to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, that was a pretty good summary of it. You know, we just talked long term as far as making some concessions to new employees coming in and contracts of the future. And, you know, with the declining student enrollment, you know, the recommendation right now from the administration and that committee is to, you know, through attrition, just not replace retirees. You know, we have a couple big ticket items in there. You can see those IU costs, sending our students into the intermediate unit programs. It's roughly $30,000 per student, $50,000 for transportation. We've got $690,000 going out to the IU. The cyber school cost, we have $600,000 plus going out into outside cyber, which you don't want me to get started on my opinions on that, but Governor Wolf's proposal is to cap that tuition at $9,500 per student. There's some students that we're paying almost $40,000 a year on. And then, you know, in addition to that, we have a number of students that are out in residential programs, $178,000. If we can get a couple of them items controlled, you know, eventually, I think we can get this budget back under control. You know, as far as an immediate fix, I don't think anybody from the finance committee had any really good ideas at this particular time. Megan was at the finance committee today as well. Megan, is there anything you'd like to add that I may have missed and maybe Mark overlooked too?
No, I'd say, I mean, the biggest thing was just looking in the future, reassessing the contracts, and there's some that are coming up. So we're really going to have to dive deep on those and just figuring out, I guess, how to even it out over the next couple of years, because that fund balance just keeps decreasing. And, like we said today, if it decreases like this over the next 2 years, we're not going to have a fund balance. So we really need to figure something out pretty quick. But as of right now, I don't think there's anything really major or anything that's going to make a dent in that 1.6 million that we're at a deficit for.
So did we decide on the ESSER money? Are you looking at doing something new, or are we going to try and use that money to offset expenses and move those with that other budget money back in to the designated fund, so we have that for next year?
Well, we still have ESSER 3 that we haven't determined yet, Kelly, but with that ESSER 2 money, we pretty much have that outlined in the budget. Those HVAC controls that Emmy had talked about, we originally thought that'd be a cost of $250,000, and it's probably going to be closer to $350,000. So we're tightening up some of those other budget areas, but the big ticket items are a math coach, are the HVAC controls, the custodians, and technology. That's pretty much eating up that $737,000. Now, as we move into ESSER 3, we have another $1.7 million coming in addition to the revenues that Emmy had already covered. So in future budgets, Kelly, that's something we can think about. We can do that, or we can dive into one of the projects that we had down there, whether it be, continuing to upgrade those HVAC systems at the elementary school, the high school auditorium, the track. I mean, there's needs that we have within the district. We just got to remember it's a one-time stimulus that we have coming in. So there's a lot of thoughts that we need to make long-term, but as far as ESSER 2, we pretty much have that spent. Jen, did you have any other discussion points?
No, I mean, I think, as you and I have talked about this and going, over it again, I mean, there are some small things that, I think we can do, the moving that money from 2 police officers to 1, and, seeing some savings there, and, taking out some other line items. But like you all have said, these are pretty fixed costs. I mean, we've cut the budget over the course of the past, well, I've been on the board 15 years almost, and, we've tried to make those cuts as we go along. And I just don't feel like there's any much variable that we can cut into any more than we already have. So it's just a difficult position we're in at the moment.
Agreed. And we've kept our supplies for our staff in pretty much every area: athletics, maintenance, teachers. We've kept them the same since 2010, and really haven't increased them. I mean, we do put money in the budget each year for that, but that's just one example that we do here within. And you've seen Emmy presented that entire budget to you. There's been some changes, but a majority of that stays the same each year. It's just increased cost. Healthcare, salary, benefits, the ongoing expenses to run an educational program, taking our curriculum, putting it online, supporting our staff. We struggle in areas. So right now, I hate to say it, but the finance committee, there's just so much going on, and a lot to learn. We don't have a whole lot of recommendations at this time. It's just, I think it's going to be a long-term process if we get this turned around.
State keeps giving us the same amount of money every year, but costs keep going up. State isn't kind of doing their share, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I gave the example from 2 years ago when Governor Wolf put $100 million additional money into the state budget, which is absolutely fantastic. And I broke down those figures, and Philadelphia School District got $73.5 million, and AC Valley got just over $9,800. So that's part of that fair funding formula that I referenced earlier. There's winners and there's losers. So even moving forward, if that entire budget goes through that fair funding formula, I think we probably have more of a concern that we actually have right now, believe it or not. So I'd echo what Mark said. We're just not getting the support from the state is what I feel we should be getting at this time.
Let me just mention too that, you know, during the virtual advocacy day, that I did have an opportunity to talk with both Donna Oberlander and Scott Hutchinson, and you know, had some conversation about, you know, the predicament we happen to be in with 4 counties and the difficulty there. And I don't think that Donna Oberlander was necessarily aware quite of the situation, you know, and she did reach out to PD, didn't get a lot of good feedback there from them. However, you know, I will continue to follow up on that conversation with her, because I feel like there's more discussion there to be had. I don't know that it'll go anywhere, but we're going to try it. So something else to think about.
Thanks, Jen. And that Forecast 5 that Emmy referred to earlier, that software analytical program, I'm still learning that and providing more training. I'd be able to share more details with the board, but we do have a relatively high cost per student spending. But the data that's in that budget, that 780,000, that was for Mid-Atlantic youth, and close to $1 million every other year, skews that overall budget per number of students. I mean, declining number of students that we have really impact the revenue, but our budget has always been skewed. So I was really optimistic that we'd have a normal budget this year, but it's still going to be skewed the other way with the ESSER money coming in. So it's going to be a couple of years before we really figure out how much it costs to educate these students that we have due to the different revenue sources coming in. But we'll continue to work with that finance committee. We're going to dive into contracts, and then we'll continue to look at that ESSER money. So the school board needs to decide with that ESSER 3 in the following school year, you know, what we do with that money and how we tackle some of these big ticket items. Anything else before we move into personnel?
David, do you need from us sort of some direction this evening in terms of where we want the taxes, or do you want to wait till next month for that direction? What would be the best for you and Emmy and Andrea?
Jennifer, probably the sooner the better, but I also don't want to you know, overburden the school board, because we just covered a lot of information, $16 million worth of expenditure. So I'd like for everybody to soak this in a day or two and then communicate it out. And we need to have that discussion at the voting meeting next Monday for sure. So I do appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Okay, moving into personnel, letter A. We're accepting the resignation of Dave Sherman from the head varsity girls basketball coach. Dave's been coaching that program since 2010-11. And if you looked at his letter of resignation, he's been coaching since 1993. He's coached over 60 seasons. And that's not even to mention the number of seasons that he had played as a student athlete. So I can't thank Dave enough for his dedication to the athletic program here at AC Valley. He's had some wonderful teams. He's nurtured and led a number of wonderful young ladies through that program and great things within their lives. So Dave's going to be greatly missed, and we do appreciate everything he's done to that program. And hopefully we'll find somebody to replace him. With that being said, we do have motion letter B under there to advertise to fill that vacancy. Underneath that, we also have a motion in front of you to approve moving Megan Dehart from the junior-senior high school into the elementary secretary position. That would begin April 26th. And so we're not quite done with Felicia, but we'll accept her formal letter at this time. Okay, moving down through, we don't have anything under instructional services this evening. And in policy, we have that PSBA had made changes. So there wasn't any discussion in the past month. So I'm assuming there's nothing else to be added to that, but we'll continue to update those policies. And we just renewed our membership with PSBA and their policies. So more to come with that. As we finish off this evening, just under transportation, we have one request working with all the contractors. And once we have all the documentation in place, we have an interview with Lori, and that'll provide Pam with a little bit more coverage. And at this time, that concludes everything that we have on the agenda. Before we break tonight, I'd just like to open it up if there's any questions or comments about the items that we covered. There was a host of information that was presented to you this evening, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear as we think for a week before we get into the voting meeting. Through it twice today, so Mark and Megan heard that thing twice today as well, so good job to that committee, and good job to Emmy and Andrew as well.
Yes, thank you all very much. It's a difficult, it's always a difficult school board meeting to have every year. You know, it's you're never quite sure what the right thing to do is. You just try to make the best decision for the kiddos, and so as you all are thinking about what was discussed this evening, you know, please try to bring some ideas with you next week to the voting meeting, so that we can provide some direction to David and Emmy and Andrea.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate your ongoing support and everything that the school board is doing. So this time we'll go ahead and end the meeting. And if there's any questions or comments between now and next Monday, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'll be sure to respond. And I do thank everybody for their time this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Goodbye.